Hello, everyone. So, I started a group last year called the United States of Love. And the reason I started that group is that so much of the dialogue, so much of the conversation here in the United States was built around fear, was built around hate, distrust, and suspicion. And I wanted an outlet for myself, but also for other people, to see evidence, to see examples of love being shown to people, particularly across demographic groups. And that doesn't matter to me whether it's gender, religion, ethnicity, nationality, sexual preference, handicap status, any and all of the above and more that I haven't mentioned. Just love being shown from person to person. Because we are in a time where division is the order of the day. We are being divided by our politicians, by our media, by our stories, and by these groups that say that they advocate for us, but they advocate for us by separating us. They want us to view ourselves as separate. They want us to view ourselves as under attack, and they want us to be on the defensive, or some groups, as we've seen with recent events, want us to be on the offensive, and that we should take the tact to attack our so-called oppressors rather than try to understand them, rather than listen to them, rather than love them. And I could not disagree with that more. What we need right now across all groups is some more listening. What we could use right now across all groups is some more love, some more identification with what makes us one people, one human race. But that's not the message we're getting from most of our outlets. And we're reaching the point where that violence, that separation, that alienation is reaching a fever pitch. As we've seen by recent events, these are now getting to very violent demonstrations, very violent attacks done in the name of terrorizing one group in order to advance their cause. And it's predicated on seeing some other group, whether it be a religious group, whether it be an ethnic group, whether it be a so-called racial group, as the enemy. And that somehow these individuals are undermining our humanity, our existence, our ability to take care of ourselves and to look out for our own good. And so the view is that these folks have to be dealt with. They have to be taken out. They have to be intimidated. And that's not the tack to take at all. Because if you know anything about American history, it's that we have a long-standing tradition of how to deal with groups, with organizations, with countries, with movements that attempt to intimidate us. And usually it's we kick them in the teeth and get them the hell out of the way so that we can come back and find some way to be more united. And yes, we are not all the way there, not even close. And so I want to speak particularly to some of the folks that are so invested in believing that we already were a united country, that we already were a united people, that everything was good and everything was great. And the bad things that happened because the people they happened to were disobedient, they were confrontational, they were violent, they were criminals, they were whatever explanation you were given and believed. Because the reality is that the groups that have been historically victimized were by and large victimized because of their identity, not because of their actions. I know of no group of any persuasion that supports lawlessness, that supports criminality, that openly advocates for criminal behavior to be okay in order to support that group. We all pretty much agree on that. So my belief is that the answer is not in creating an identity of our demographic. Not our race, not our religion, ethnicity, not our sexual preference or gender identity, not our nationality, not our abilities or our handicaps, but simply focus on the fact that we are one species. We are one human race. We are all more the same than we are different. And that we all want to be treated by a single standard of care, of justice, of love, and of accomplishment. That's all we want. That's all we want. That's all any of us want, is to actually be treated as equals by each other and by the systems that govern us. There was a chant that was used in the recent events in Virginia, and the group that organized and protested there said, "You will not replace us." And that statement alone is very telling, because it comes from a place where they believe that their kind are being exterminated. That somehow there is an agenda that believes that their kind, as they define it, are being eradicated. And that's not true. It's not true. With the exception of maybe ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and even there, I don't think that's true either. There really are no groups that are fully into genocide, ethnocide. And particularly here in the US, the groups that are being active are all fighting in their own way for a measure of equality, or in some cases for a measure of supremacy. But supremacy is an old story. Supremacy is how colonials and conquistors took over the world and gained power for themselves. But that's no longer the order of the day. We're connected in more ways right now in this time in history than we have ever been before. And because of that, we have the ability to see the other as ourselves. If we choose to. If we choose to. But in order for that to happen, it requires that we open our eyes. It requires that we open our ears. And it requires that we open our understanding to see the experience of someone who is not like us. To take off the rose-colored glasses of everything's fine. No, we're good. To see where there are points that we need to address, correct, mend, and find a way to come together. There are forces in this country that want us to fear each other. There are forces in this country that want us to hate each other. I refuse to do that. I refuse to do that. My focus is love. Is loving all people, no matter what classifications they have, what characteristics they have, what culture they have, where they're from or where they're going. So that we might, in this country and around the world, finally give ourselves a chance to be what the Creator intended for us in the first place. One race, one species, one governing body over all of the resources, all of the lives, and all of the energy of this world. To those who are being confronted with having to deal with assumptions that they may have held that turn out not to be true, this is going to be an exhausting time for you. Because things that you've held near and dear for years, if not decades, you may find that experience, yours, other people's experience, is going to prove those to be untrue. And so a lot of things that you understood about the world and believed to be real will be uncovered. And that you'll be forced to reevaluate how you see the world and the people in it. And it's going to be tough. There's no two ways about it. Changing your understanding of the world is not an easy process. But it is necessary. So my message to those who are now being confronted with this situation for the first time, rest if you have to. Take small breaks if you have to, because the overwhelm is real. But don't quit. Don't give yourself the option of, well, I'm wrong, I quit. Because that doesn't benefit anyone. This is where the real work of love begins. Because love requires that you advocate, that you stand in the gap, and if need be, you stand as a shield for those you love. So do what you must to bring yourself into that dialogue, to open your understanding, to be able to see every man, woman, and child walking this earth as yourself. And then ask yourself, if you love them the way you love you, what would you do? How would you show your love for that person whose situation may be very different from your own? Take some time. Think it through. Feel it. Feel it. This is not a mental exercise. This is the life and livelihood of your brothers and sisters around the country and around the world. Take some time and feel what it is to be in their story, living in the systems and institutions that govern this world. And ask yourself, if I love them as I love me, what would I do? And then the most important thing you can do is do that. Demonstrate your love by being love. And we'll all get to a better place for it. Have a great day. God bless.